What up, Jets fans? This is Jake Ellenbogen. I am now covering your favorite team, the New York Jets, in addition to the Los Angeles Rams, which, if you're new to the channel and you've checked it out, you already kind of know. But we are going to be touching on the first topic of what I want to discuss now that I'm covering the Jets. And it's obviously one of the biggest, most important topics. It is about the franchise quarterback, Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson, obviously we know, second-year guy. This is somebody that showed some potential last year, obviously showed a ton of it at BYU. But I think when you look at this player, he really projects well to this level of football. And on top of it, this era of football. More and more, the top quarterbacks are becoming dual threats, whether you can throw it, run it, whatever. The guys that are succeeding the most, aside from a Tom Brady, are really the dual threats. You look at Kyler Murray, you look at Lamar Jackson, you look at Aaron Rodgers. Whether you want to admit it or not, he is a dual threat. He can take off and run. Ryan Tannehill, those type of guys. Deshaun Watson, the list goes on. Dual threats are taking over the league, and they have been for quite some time. So the Jets got out and ahead of schedule. They didn't go after Mac Jones. They didn't draft Trey Lance. They took Zach Wilson last year, and got a little bit of a mixed bag last year. Zach Wilson had more interceptions than touchdowns. He started off really poorly, but this is somebody that coming into this season or this past season, he's not a guy that I expected to really do all that well because I didn't think he was ready for the NFL day one. However, as the season went on, I started to notice that this guy does have fight in him. He's got a dog mentality, and I do think because of that, I think he's very much equipped to take 2022 by the horns. And, I'll say this right now. I think the Jets did a really nice job of putting a ton of talent around him, and so I'm excited to, really dive into it this year with this guy, because I think this could end up being one of the better passers in the league once you lose a Tom Brady or a Matt Ryan. Obviously, Big Ben and Drew Brees, they've retired. So, when you start to lose those guys, you're looking for the face of the league. Don't be surprised if Zach Wilson, with all the weapons he has around him, I really think this guy's going in the right direction. Not only just his play, but I think the Jets are as well. And I think they're putting him in position to go the right direction. Last year, he had 13 total touchdowns, 9 of which were passes thrown. He had 4 rushing touchdowns. I'd like to see more usage. He only had 183 yards rushing on about 25 carries, so I'd like to see more usage with him as a true runner. On top of that, I'd like to see him protected better. And I think this year, with Mekhi Becton obviously coming off the injury, he's been sitting out, up until the mandatory minicamp because of course, he did have a newborn, birth of his kid. So he's been sitting out. He'll be back, and they're going to decide whether or not he or George Fant are going to play left tackle, right tackle, vice versa there. They added a former Pro Bowl guard from the 49ers, might I add. So obviously we have a lot of the 49er connection going on with the Jets, with Robert Saleh, and, of course you have Mike LaFleur. And they did go out and they added Laken Tomlinson, and so I think that is definitely going to help Zach Wilson. This was a Pro Bowler with Mike LaFleur with that offense, so now he's back. He's in a very comfortable scheme. He doesn't really have to do anything as far as getting ready for it, so he can really play to his strengths and not really worry too much about it. They add a dual tight end in free agency. You go and you get CJ Uzama, who just played in the Super Bowl, a guy that I think is more of a blocker, but he's got some underrated and impressive receiving ability. The guy that I really like, and all quarterbacks have to have a safety net, and let's not lie, Zach Wilson has plenty of weapons at the wide receiver position. We'll dive into that, but the safety net at tight end, in my opinion, is going to be Tyler Conklin. He had an opportunity to really take off last year with the Vikings due to the injury of Irv Smith Jr. And so I think because of that injury, and of course Chris Herndon never really coming along the way they might have liked, Tyler Conklin, the former draft pick, was able to actually get going and showed you some, impressive receiving ability as well. I think he's the better receiver of the two, but they both were paid equally in that regard. So watch out for both of them. But I think Zach Wilson is going to have a very, very good opportunity here, having two tight ends that could be that safety net. And that is going to be big for a second-year quarterback. On top of that, they go out and they get Breece Hall. You look at what Breece Hall obviously did in college and the workload he had taking over 800 touches at Iowa State. On top of that, you get the impressive Michael Carter out of UNC, who had quite the year last season, really came on strong as a receiver at the end of last year. They bring back Tevin Coleman, who has familiarity with the scheme. Then you have Corey Davis, you have Denzel Mims, you have Garrett Wilson, you have Elijah Moore, Braxton Berrios they added back. So, a lot of guys there. Jeff Smith is more of a big-bodied receiver, as well as, Denzel Mims. And I mentioned Mims, and he's become kind of another worry here about him being N'Keal Harry, because, it does seem like second rounder, we're constantly hearing about him, but we're not really constantly seeing him do much. He's got an impressive skill set, but it just has not translated. I still am holding out hope, though, that he can find a little bit of a role there. But regardless, you just named all those weapons, and you look, and Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, and Braxton Berrios, that's a really good quad of receivers on top of the tight ends I mentioned. And then, the offensive line. I mean, George Fant, say what you will about him. I actually did not realize how good he played last year. He actually only gave up one sack the whole year. Was arguably their best offensive lineman. They go out and they get Elijah Vera Tucker, who I absolutely loved in last year's draft. So this is somebody that I think is definitely going to help. He's going to move over to right guard as Laken Tomlinson will take over at left guard. Connor McGovern was pretty underrated as well. I don't think he gets enough credit. And the reason I say that is because I actually have the numbers right here. He was ranked 8th. In all of centers on Pro Football Focus, run blocking 8th, zone run blocking 4th. He was 14th in pass blocking, 18th in pass blocking efficiency. So this guy is going to help you in the run game. He is not the best pass protector, but he is an underrated asset to that offensive line. And of course, Becton, who's going to round out. I think he'll start at right tackle. But regardless, this is the point I'm trying to make. Zach Wilson has help. How many times do we see a young quarterback go in with no help whatsoever? We knew it was going to be tough his first year. We knew it was going to be pretty bad. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I think we all knew that. But now the Jets have been able to kind of look at everything the way last year went. They learned a lot from it, and now they can really try to build upon it and, hopefully get down the Zach Wilson pressures. He was pressured more than any quarterback in the National Football League last year, and that is just not conducive to winning football. And if you don't believe me, I'll bring up the chart right now. See what I mean? So, obviously, the names aren't, enough to go crazy about. Obviously, I think Justin Fields is going to be something special someday. Matt Ryan is in for a resurgent year in Indy. Teddy Bridgewater's a backup, but it might not be long before he becomes the starter in Miami. And then Sam Darnold. Not really sure what to make of Sam Darnold, to be honest with you. But that's not really my point. My point is, times pressured per dropback, Zach Wilson has been pressured more than anybody in the National Football League last year. So he's coming into year 2 already experiencing live bullets being thrown at him consistently. This is somebody that his drop percentage, he had a lot of drops that he suffered with. That's a stat that doesn't tell the full story because Zach Wilson is not throwing accurate passes when he's constantly running for his life, and who would? So now I think you combine everything that they've done on the offensive line, which I like, by the way. You combine that they added Garrett Wilson to a very underrated and a very intriguing wide receiver core. You add Breece Hall, and now you look at that defense, and all of a sudden, Zach Wilson might not be playing from behind a ton. He might not have to put the team on his back, and he might actually have some protection to throw the ball to very talented receivers all around. Garrett Wilson is a stud. If you haven't seen him, if you haven't seen his tape, he was one of the best wide receivers in this draft, and he was drafted as such, and rightfully so. You look at the speed, you look at his ability to stop and start and, obviously make plays, not only after the catch, but deep downfield. He's kind of a dual threat in that sense where he can stretch the field, but on top of that, he can be useful when he gets the ball. Using his ankle flexion, he can set himself up and prepare himself to take the ball and run with it. And I think that's kind of a skill that I really look for in young wide receivers is, can you make yards after the catch? Not like, here and there. Like, can you really be dynamic? And that is something Garrett Wilson does. We saw Elijah Moore do it last year. Corey Davis is built, obviously bigger than both of them. But regardless of that, again, a lot working for him. And I like the direction Mike LaFleur is going in. And I like how the Jets are really trying to help out Zach Wilson and are not just putting him on an island. You don't have an Adam Gase here. You don't have, any of that. Okay, that's gone. It's not like you have Matt Nagy. Like last year, watching that was even a train wreck. With Justin Fields. So Zach Wilson is set up to succeed. It is up to him. He has got to be able to play to the level that they're expecting him to play. But make no mistake about it, Zach Wilson is prepared. He just added, some weight. He gained 13 pounds. He's likely going to play around 218 to 220, which is very interesting. You like to see him bulking up. And I just think the way the Jets are building around him, they're probably not going to win a Super Bowl this year. But that is okay because it is the little things. And people often forget that there is a wind of change that happens every single time in the NFL. It may take 5 years, it may take 10, but the Jets aren't going to be bad forever. And the reason for that is because they went out and they got their franchise quarterback in Zach Wilson, and they're now building around him. So right off the cuff, if I'm not a Jets fan, if I don't follow the team, right on paper, this team looks interesting. And not only that, but this is a team that might be slept on because of who's in their division. The Bills, I think, are a Super Bowl contender and maybe the favorites in the AFC. The Patriots are a contender to take a step back. I didn't love their draft, and I thought that they spent a ton of money the previous season, but this year I wasn't really sure what they were doing as far as, chasing talent, signing talent, whatnot. And then Miami. Miami's going as far as Tua's going, and I can tell you right now, Tua cannot throw a football the way Zach Wilson can. I truly think Tyreek Hill made the mistake of not trying to force his way to the Jets. That would have made more sense. He wanted to go home. I get that. But this is a team that I think would have better suited his needs. And I won't be surprised if the Dolphins do not do as well as the Jets this year. I like what the Jets are doing. I like what Zach Wilson is showing. I like what he showed last year. Even though it was a bad year, he still fought through it. And you still saw at the end of games, he still had that dog mentality. He had the clutch gene. You either have it or you don't. I think Zach Wilson has that it factor, and we're going to see it more under a microscope in 2022. That's all I got for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. This is the first video of me covering the Jets, so I hope I did a good job. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. If you liked what I had to say, be sure to follow me at JK Bogan on Twitter. I'll be covering the Rams and Jets all season long and hopefully way down the line. I've been covering the Rams since 2016, and I decided to start covering an AFC team, and the Jets, living in New York, I felt like they made the most sense. I'm excited to follow this team and give you coverage, updates, all of that, but until next time, I'm Jake Ellenbogen. You guys take care.